Record. Just a second. Okay, so we are at the shiur of the last parasha in Chumash Bereshit, which is Parashat Vayechi. I want to share with you some very nice ideas on this parasha, and you can see it all right in your screen here. Do you see the psukim here?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, fantastic. So we can start. The first psukim in the parasha says, Vayechi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim 17 שנה. Yaakov lived in Egypt for 70 years. ויהי ימי יעקב שני חייו, 77 שנים ו40 ומעט שנה. And he lived at the end of his life just for 147 years. ויקרבו ימי ישראל למות, and he was very close to become a dead person. ויקרא לבנו ליוסף, and he called his son Joseph, ויאמר לו, אם נא מצאתי חן בעיניך, if you like me, שים לה ידך תחת ירכי, please should you put your hand underneath my thigh, ועשית עמדי חסד ואמת, and you should do with me grace and אמת as well. אל נא תקברני במצרים, please don't bury me here in Egypt.
Zoomed, make.
Pardon? So says the Imre Noam from Jacob, a very nice idea here, and you can see it all written, and you can see it with me. He brings out the Megale Amukot, that he asks, how come we daven in Tehillim, we say, Samchenu ki imot initanu, shnot rainu ra'a. Hashem, please make us happy just as we were tortured for all of those years that we were through. We lived through, we were through. He asks, how come we can ask for that when all of those years that we had were more than 2,000? But we have until the end of the world just maybe 200 years from now, because the end of the world would be, according to the Gemara, after 6,000 years that the world is has been created, that the world is going on. So if we have only until the end, only approximately 200 years, how can we enjoy and be happy just as we were tortured if the torturing was much longer than those years that we are supposed to be happy? Do you feel the question? So he says, the Megale Amukot, that when Hashem would bring the Mashiach, every day would feel much, much, much longer. And it would feel to us every day just like a whole year. And therefore, every day would be with so much good in it and so much pleasure that we would feel just like a whole year of being pleasured and being happy. And with that, according to that, we can understand how come all of those years that we were tortured would be, we would have the similar time in happiness, because we would be happy. It won't be so much time, but it would be, we would feel just like it was for 2,000 years. Says the Megale Amukot that that's what written in Parashat Miketz, ויהי מקץ שנתיים ימים. Here you can see it. ויהי מקץ שנתיים ימים. What is that? He says that in the Ketz, when the Mashiach would come, in the end, every day, yamim, would be like shnatayim, would be like an year or maybe even 2 years. And with that being said, we can understand how come in those years that Mashiach would come, we would be just happy as we were tortured for many years. And that's the meaning of the pasuk here, Samchenu ki imot initanu, please Hashem, make us happy just as we were tortured, shnot reinu ra'a, just as those years that we saw all of the bad things. And the answer would be that because every day would be so long, at least at our feeling, it would be just as those years that we had bad in life. Says the Imre Noam, according to that, we can understand here in the parasha, the Zohar. The Zohar says, you can see it here, that all of those years that Yaakov Avinu was in Egypt for 17 years, he had a very good life. He had the best years of his life. And says the Zohar that is just payment for those years that he had before that were very bad. Just as he said on himself, מעט ורעים, we saw it in last week's parasha, מעט ורעים היו ימי שני חיי. Asked the Imre Noam, how come those 17 years be a payment for 130 years that he was suffering? So he says, just according to this Megale Amukot, that maybe Hashem gave Yaakov Avinu the feeling that every day was so long and so full with goodness and happiness and pleasures that it felt to him like many years. And just with that, we can understand that maybe 17 years felt to him like 130, and those years were the years that he was happy, and it was a payment for those 130 years that he was sad. According to this, he explains the first pasuk that we started with, ויהי ימי יעקב, ויחי יעקב בארץ מצרים 17 שנה. Yaakov Avinu lived in Egypt for 17 years, and if you would ask how come those years would be a payment for those years that he suffered, the answer is, ויהי ימי יעקב שני חייו. Those days that he lived were just like years. ימי Yaakov, the days, ימי days, were just like שני חייו, like years of life. And therefore, those 17 years could be a payment for 130 years that he was suffering. That's a very nice idea here. Any questions on that? No. So we can continue on to the next pasuk. The pasuk says, "Vayikrevu yemei Yisrael lamut." He started to feel that his days are coming. Vayikra livno leYosef, and he called his son Yosef and asked him to bury him in Egypt. Says the Imre Noam, the Noam Elimelech, excuse me, the Noam Elimelech, a very nice idea here. You can see it here on this paragraph. He says, look, the pasuk was supposed to say, "Vayikra livno Yosef." He was calling his son, which was Joseph. Why does the pasuk say, "Vayikra livno leYosef," meaning that he called his son Vayikra livno leYosef, meaning it's like it's written twice that he called him. Vayikra livno, he called his son. LeYosef, he called Joseph. The pasuk could say, Vayikra livno leYosef, he called his son Joseph. What is it that the pasuk says? Vayikra livno, he called his son Vayikra leYosef, and he called Joseph. That's the question of the Noam Elimelech. And he says here, in a Hasidus way, that every Jew is supposed to do all of the mitzvot and keep all of them, but that is just the level of a slave, that you have a master, which is Hashem, and as a slave, you're supposed to do what he says to you. So if you're doing all of the mitzvot just as he told us to do, that's not an einfall, that's not a chidush at all. That's the regular thing that you're supposed to do. You're a slave and you're supposed to do all of the mitzvot. But whenever you are adding on the mitzvot and you are adding fences and you are adding to Avodat Hashem, you are doing it with chayut, with happiness, you are adding on the basic level of the Avodat Hashem, you add from yourself, that's the level that you are becoming a son of Hashem. A son of Hashem is not only that I'm doing just what I am supposed to do, just what I am mechuyav to do, I'm doing as well beyond those stuff, just to show that I am a son and not only a slave. Says that Noam Elimelech, that's what's written here, Vayikra livno, do you know how do you become a son of Hashem? Livno, le Yosef. Whenever you are adding, Yosef means adding, to the Avodat Hashem. So therefore the pasuk doesn't say, it doesn't double down the words, but it means to say, Vayikra livno, do you know how do you become a son? Just if you are doing what's behind the word or the name Joseph, which is to be adding to Avodat Hashem all the time. And the Reb Menachem Mendel from Rimnov, he was saying always that every Jew is called Joseph because he's supposed to add to Avodat Hashem and to develop himself more and more. And the similar idea is written in a sefer called Aderet Eliyahu from the greatest Mekubal, Rabbi Assaf Halili from Baghdad. And he says in Parashat Vayechi on those psukim here that you can see a very nice idea. The psukim says in chapter 39, ויקח אדוני יוסף אותו, the Potiphar took Joseph, ויתנהו אל בית הסוהר, and he put him in prison. מקום אשר אסירי המלך אסורים. The place where all of those prisons are impressed. ויהי שם בבית הסוהר, ויהי השם את יוסף, he was there in the prison, and Hashem was with him. Says the Ben Ish Chai, the Rabbi Yosef Chaim from Baghdad, that what's written here is that Adonai Yosef is Hashem, because every Jew is called Joseph. Every Jew is called Joseph, and the master of Joseph is Hashem in a Remez way, in a sod way. And he says that according to that, Hashem puts our soul here in the prison, which is this olam. Why? Why is it called a prison? Because everyone here is imprisoned by the Yetzer Hara, by the Satan, by all of those stuff that try to tempt him to do things against the mitzvot, against Hashem. And if you are trying to be a tzaddik, just as Joseph was, and you are trying to add to your soul more mitzvot and more masim tovim, and with that you're becoming more tzaddik, so Hashem would be with you. And that's what's written here. Vayhi Hashem et Yosef. Whoever is adding more mitzvot and is developing in spirituality ways, Hashem is with him. And that's what's written here. Vayhi Hashem et Yosef. Hashem was with him. So that's a great message that we are all supposed to learn from this parasha here. What's the normally Melech says that Vayikra livno Yosef. Do you know how do you become a son of Hashem and not just a slave? If you are just like Joseph, if you're just adding to Avodat Hashem, you add fences, you add on the mitzvot, you're doing it with happiness, you are more than a slave and you become a son. Let's continue on to some more ideas on the parasha. The pasuk says in chapter 49, Issachar chamor garem, rovץ בין המשפטיים. Says the Noam Elimelech here a very strong idea. He says, look, he says, all of the mitzvot that we are doing is not even a small payment for what Hashem supplies us food and parnose and life and gives us everything that we need to be alive. And because He gives us all of the needs that we need to be alive and to live a nice life, so whatever we would do in mitzvot isn't even 1% of payment to say thank you Hashem for all of the good things that you're doing with us. Says the Noam Elimelech, according to that, all of the mitzvot that we are doing won't be the main sachar, the main payment in the olam haba after we are living here. Why is that? Because those stuff are not even starting to be a payment, even for the basic things that we have here in life, which is birth, a good life, and parnose, and happiness, and Hashem gives us whatever we need. So therefore, all of those stuff are not even 1% of the things of a payment that for those stuff that Hashem gives us, and therefore they won't be all of the mitzvot that we are doing and all of the Torah that we are learning we won't have for that the sachar, the payment in the olam haba. For what are we supposed to have the payment? Oh, by the way, it says that that's written in the Mishnah in Avot, in Perek Bet. The Mishnah says, אם למדת התורה הרבה, if you learned a lot of Torah, אל תחזיק טובה לעצמך. Don't feel that you did something that is so great. Why is that? כי לכך נוצרת, because you were born to do those stuff. Says the Noam Elimelech, now I want to read you some words here, you can see it here. אך עיקר, the main, קבלת שכרנו, the main שכר, the main payment that we would have, ומצד שהבורא יתברך שמו נתן בנו יצר הרע. השם gave us the יצר הרע. המסית אותנו, that tempts us to do so many bad things, בכל עת ורגע, every moment, ומתגבר עלינו להתאבות תאווה, and he tries to overcome us, to make us go after all of the lusts, ולהרהר חלילה בעבירה, and to do some things, וכל יצר מחשבותיו רק רע כל היום. says the נועם אלימלך, והאדם עומד כנגדו, and whenever the man is standing still against this יצר הרע, ובתחבולות יעשה מלחמה, and he tries to fight with the יצר הרע, נגדו להיזהר ולהישמר מכל דבר רע, and he tries to fight against the יצר הרע, and not to fall into all of his temptations, מחניפות ושקרים וליצנות ולשון הרע ותאוות והרהורים והדומה להם, all of those stuff that are עבירס, לזה צריך מלחמה ועבודה רבה לשבר כוח התאוות, היצר הרע. Here you need to go for a war, to fight against all of those temptations that you have. וזהו עינוי וסיגוף גדול, and that war, that fighting is a very big torture to you. על ידי זה הקדוש ברוך הוא מקדשו ומתארו כאילו עשה מצווה, and with the person doing all of this war, Hashem so considerate that he gives him קדושה and תיירה, just as he did מצוות. כי על ידי המצוות אנו מתקדשים ומתארים, כאומרו אשר קידשנו במצוותיו, because with doing the מצוות we become more holy, and whenever we fight the יצר הרע, just like we did a mitzvah and we become holy. Says the Noam Elimelech, that's what written in the Gemara in Kiddushin. The Gemara says that whoever doesn't do a mitzvah, but he has a temptation to do an avera, to do a sin, and he doesn't do the sin, מעלה עליו הכתוב, says the Gemara, that Hashem consider it just as he did a mitzvah. Says the Noam Elimelech that that's what the Gemara means to say, that if you are breaking all of those laws that you have, and you are going against the Yetzer Hara, and you're fighting with it, you become holy just as you did a mitzvah. And that's what the Gemara says. Says the Noam Elimelech, that's what Moshe said in Tehillim, Samchenu ki imoti nitanu. What is that? We spoke about this pasuk earlier, but according to the Noam Elimelech here, he says, look, פירוש, שתשמחנו בקדושתך, כי ימות עניתנו על ידי היצר הרע. Meaning, please Hashem, make us happy with your קדושה, with your holiness, that you are making us holy, just because we were so tortured by the יצר הרע. שאנחנו מוכרחים לשבר כוח תאוותו, that we are supposed to break all of those, and go against all of those temptations that he tries to fall us in. שנות ראינו רעה, פירוש, כל השנים אשר ראינו והסתכלנו ברעה, להיזהר ולהישמר ממנו. על ידי זה ייראה אל עבדיך פועלך. רוצה לומר, יחשב בפניך כאילו עשינו כל מצוותיך ופעולותיך כנ"ל. Meaning, all of those days that we fight with him and we had so many wars, those days are those that would become and would be in a way called just as we did all of the mitzvot, ייראה לעבדיך פועלך. Because it's a huge torture, שעל ידי עינויים וסיגופים מהיצר הרע לשבר כוחו, יחשב כאילו עשית כל המצוות. That because you are so tortured with fighting with the יצר הרע, it just as you did all of the mitzvot. Said the Noam Elimelech, that's what written in Tehillim as well in Chaf Aleph, chapter 21, תאוות ליבו נתת לו. What is תאוות ליבו? You gave every person, Hashem, you gave every person here the option to do whatever he wants to. תאוות ליבו, you gave him the option to go after lusts and to be hedonized and to do whatever he wants. והרשת שפתיו בל מנת הסלע, and you didn't prevent him from speaking whatever he wants. It could be לשון הרע, and it could be lies, and it could be whatever he wants to speak, he can. And all of that you did because the pasuk says, כי תקדמנו ברכות טוב. Because you wanted him to have a free choice, and he would have יצר הרע that tries to tempt him, and whenever he fights with it, he would have birkot tov, he would have a great payment after he leaves this world. So says the Noam Elimelech here, a great thing that we are supposed to be taught, a great lesson to us, that all of the payment that we have after this world, when we would go to the next world, to Olam Haba, won't be for the mitzvot that we are doing, won't be for the Torah that we are learning, because those stuff we must do just for a payment for Hashem, for Him giving us all of the good things that we have in our life. So the main payment would be only on those stuff that we had a temptation to do bad things, and we fighted with the Yetzer Hara, and we went to a war. And whenever we are in this war and we fight against the Yetzer Hara, and it's a huge torture for us, this thing would be the main thing that we would have on it, a sachar, a payment in the next world. Says the Noam Elimelech, that's what's written here in the pasuk in our parasha. Isachar chamor garem, the pasuk says. Says the Noam Elimelech, Isachar, you see it, וזהו Isachar chamor garem, פירוש יש שכר לאדם. Isachar, you can divide it in two, and it would be יש שכר. יש שכר means you have a payment. On what do you have the payment? Because על ידי שהחמור הוא הגוף, החומר, החומד ומתהווה, והאדם משבר כוח תאוותו, הוא הגורם לו לשכר הגדול. The body and the יצר הרע, which is called חמור because it's like a material thing, just as חמור is called חמור because he is materialist, the donkey. So, says the Noam Elimelech, יש שכר, you have a payment because חמור גרם, the יצר הרע and the body tries to tempt you to do bad deeds. רובץ בין המשפטיים, says the נועם אלימלך, פירוש הלשון הוא רובץ בין המשפטיים, שהבחירה בידו לדבר בלשונו כרצונו. Meaning that you have the option to say whatever you want with your mouth, and you can say good things and you can say bad things, and those bad things would be a sin. And that's the בחירה חופשית, that's the free decisions that you have. says the נועם אלימלך, וירא מנוחה, פירוש, ואדם משבר כוח תאוותו, ואין רואה רק שיהיה לו מנוחה מהתאוויות והמחשבות הזרות. And he wants to have a bit of, to be more settled down and to have some rest from all of those fights that he has. על ידי זה גורם לו כי טוב, that he would have all of those good things in the next עולם. Says the Noam Elimelech, that's written as well in the first pasuk in our parasha. Vayechi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim. Yaakov was living in Egypt. Says the Noam Elimelech that Egypt is a symbol to all of the Yetzer Hara and all of the bad temptations that everyone has. And Yaakov was alive because because he was fighting against all of the hedonism and the temptations that he had in Egypt. Says the Noam Elimelech, that's the reason why he lived there for 17 years, because 17 in Gematria, the number 17 is just as the number of the word Tov. Tov is good. Tet is 9, Vav is 6, and Bet is 2. So 9, 6, and 2 would be 17. 17 is the number of years that Yaakov was in Egypt. Says the Noam Elimelech that what would be the great sachar, the great payment in the next olam, which is called Tov, just as we saw Birkot Tov earlier, it would be only if you fight against Eretz Mitzrayim, if you're fighting against all of those temptations that you have. So that's a very strong message that the Noam Elimelech, the greatest tzaddik, Rabbi Elimelech Milizhansk, taught us here, that the main payment that we have in the next olam, after here, when we will go to the olam haba, would be for those wars and fights that we have against the Yetzer Hara, his temptations, his whatever he tries to make us do bad deeds and make some sins. And because of that, we need to have a strong chizuk, a strong lesson here, that we shouldn't give up again when we see that this Yetzer Hara tries to tempt us to be bad people or to do some things, because we should do all of the mitzvot, and we should go against him, and with that we would have the main sachar in the next olam. Let's end with one more idea here on this pasuk. The pasuk says in pasuk 15, do you all hear me clearly? Do you all hear me clearly?
I can hear you clearly.
Fantastic. Because someone wrote here in the chat that he can't hear me. Okay. So can we continue on to the last message here on this pasuk? Let's continue on. Says the pasuk 15, here you can see it, Vayar menucha ki tov, Issachar saw that the rest is a good thing, Vayar menucha ki tov, ואת הארץ כי נעמה, and he saw that the land is good, ויט שכמו לסבול ויהי למס עובד. So we decided to work and to um, to take on himself working hard and not to rest. Ask the Mefarshim here a strong question. If he saw that resting is good, why did he decide not to rest, but he decided to work hard? That's what the pasuk says. וירא מנוחה כי טוב, he saw that resting is a good thing, ויש שכמו לסבול, ויהי למס עובד, so he decided to work. It was supposed to be on the opposite way. When if we saw that resting is good, so we were supposed to be resting all of the day. It's a contradiction, isn't it? So I saw in some Sfarim that they brings a very nice story on it. They say here like that. סיפר הרב הצדיק, the great Rabbi Leib Friedman, Zatzal, that the Chazon Ish said that he heard from Rabbi Yehuda Leib Ashlag. He wrote the Perush of the Sulam on the Zohar, that he asked this question. This Rabbi Yehuda Leib Ashlag, he told the Chazon Ish this question, that there is a contradiction here between, in the pasuk, between the first part where he saw that resting is good, to the last part when he decided to work hardly. So he answered a very nice answer. He said like that. אומנם הפירוש הוא כך, the pirush would be like that, the explanation. The main thing that everyone here, each of us is supposed to do, the main, excuse me, the main thing that each of us is supposed to do is to give Hashem and to give up on all of the things that are for us precious, all of the things that are for us good. And the Rambam says in Ilchot Isturei Mizbeach in chapter 7, on the Pasuk in Vayikra, chapter 3, Kol Chelev LaHashem, that we are supposed to give Hashem the best parts of the behema, of the cow, or whatever it would be. We are supposed to give Hashem the best part of it, because whenever you give Hashem the best part, and you give up on it and don't take it to yourself, that's the main giving up for Hashem. That's the main way to show Hashem that you love Him and you give up on it and don't take it to yourself. And that's the thing that we saw in Hevel, that the Pasuk said in Bereshit chapter 4, that he brought מבכורות צאנו מחלביהם. He brought the best things that he had. Why is that? Because he decided that if that's the best thing that I have, I want to give it to Hashem. I don't want it to myself. I'm giving up on the best things that I have in life for Hashem. Says the Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag, that's what Issachar did as well. Issachar saw that the best thing in this life is menucha, is resting. Because he saw that resting is the best thing, he decided to give the resting to Hashem by working hardly in Avodat Hashem and doing mitzvot and all of those stuff. And that's why the Pasuk says, Vayet shechmo lisbol. He decided to learn seriously, do all of the mitzvot seriously, and work really hard in Avodat Hashem. So that's what the Pasuk says, וירא מנוחה כי טוב, ואת הארץ כי נעמה, he saw that resting is good, ויש שכמו לסבול. So we decided, this good thing that I understand, that is so good, I want to give it to Hashem, and I want to give up on it for Hashem. And whenever the Chazon Ish heard this perush, this explanation, he really enjoyed it, and he said it's a very nice explanation. So that's one more message that we can be taught from our parasha, that every time that we have something good in our life, we are supposed to give up on it for Hashem and to say, "Look, Hashem, I so love you. Or I love you so much that I'm giving up on all of the good things in my life just for doing the mitzvot, just for being more connected to you." And when Hashem feels and see that you are giving up on all of those stuff for Him, He would pay you much more. So that's for today. Let's just sum up all of the messages that we had today so we won't forget any of them. The first thing that we saw wasn't a message, but was a nice explanation that all of those years that Yaakov lived in Egypt, 17 years, were a payment for him on those bad years that he had in life. And every day for being a payment was very long, at least in his feeling, just so he would be paid in those years on all of the suffer that he had in life. Secondly, we saw that the Noam Elimelech says, "Vayikra libno Yosef," meaning that the pasuk doubles down the letter Lamed. Vayikra libno Yosef, it was supposed to say that he called Joseph and not that he called to Joseph. So says the Noam Elimelech that the idea here is that every mitzvah that you are doing and every Torah that you are learning is in the level of slave because you're supposed to do it, because Hashem, the master, told you to do it. But whenever you add from yourself some offenses and more things in Avodat Hashem, this is making you a son, and that's what the pasuk says here. Vayikra livno. You know how do you become a son, Le Yosef, when you are adding in Avodat Hashem. And that's we saw as well in the prison that Joseph was in prison and Hashem was with him because he was adding to Avodat Hashem, as we said from the Aderet Eliyahu. Second idea and message from this parasha is what we said that the main payment in the Olam Haba for our mitzvot is not on the doing the mitzvot or learning the Torah, but on the fight and the war that we have with the Yetzer Hara, and it's a big torture to us. And whenever we overcome him and we fight against him, even though it's with a lot of suffering and a lot of torturing, so we're showing in this that we love Hashem, and that's in a way a mitzvah, and we are becoming more holy with that. And that's the main sachar that we have, the main payment that we have in the Olam Haba. And that's what the Pasuk says, is sachar chamor garem, meaning that you should divide the word Issachar to two. Yesh Sachar, meaning you have the payment because Chamor Garem, because you have the body, you have the Yetzer Hara that tries to tempt you to do bad deeds, and you are fighting against them. The last idea that we saw was this contradiction in the pasuk where Issachar saw that resting is good, and so he decided to work hardly. How come he decided to work hardly when he saw that resting is good? So the answer is that whenever he saw that resting is good, he decided to give up on it for Hashem. And that's a huge message that if each of us has some things in life that he considers as very good, but they might be rather asurim, or rather, let's say you shouldn't do them, or even if you should do them, but you can give up on it for Hashem. And whenever you give up on it for Hashem, with no pressure, but you give up on some stuff in your life for Hashem, then those stuff are stuff that you really like. So that shows to Hashem that you really love Him and you're really connected to Him, and it makes you connected to Him even more. And Hashem really consider it as a great deed, and because of that, He loves you even more, and He would give you and pay you much, much more than if you won't do that. So that's for today, and we're almost out of time. I thank you all very much for being with us today and listening for this shiur. And I'm looking forward to learn with you some more parshiot. Next parasha would be Shmot, which is a new Chumash, and we should celebrate it as well. Thank you very much. Have a very good evening.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Rabbi, thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a very good evening.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.